Today, it's Texas Tech and Kansas State. And now, K-Mac Stan Smith, Mason Horodisky, and David Collier break down the game before the game. This is K-Mac Red Raider Nation's Countdown to Kickoff.
Welcome one and all into Red Raider Nation's Countdown to Kickoff. Start spreading the news. We're talking about the Little Apple today as Tech heads to on the road to take on the Kansas State Wildcats in another conference showdown. Mason Horodisky is in Manhattan. David Collier is standing by, and we've got a lot to talk about coming up. Much like Texas Tech, Kansas State is riding high off a win over a future SEC team. We talk about their roller coaster of a season so far. And later, Mason will give us reports from the Sunflower State and why it's been so tough for the Red Raiders to win at Fort Snyder. Also ahead, we've got board games. What stats you should keep an eye on in this one. It was the kick heard round college football as Trey Wolf knocked home the game-winning field goal in overtime to lift the Red Raiders to victory over Texas last week. That was a game where the Red Raiders fell behind by 2 touchdowns, and instead of throwing in the towel, Joey McGuire's bunch kept fighting back until they took the lead momentarily just before the end of regulation. And then in overtime, the defense pounced on a Bijan Robinson fumble, which led to that game-winning field goal. In what could be the final time Texas visits Lubbock for a long time, the Red Raiders made sure this was a win that was memorable for the fans in red and black and one to forget for those in the burnt orange. So now Tech is 1-0 in the Big 12. However, just like how Coach Joey McGuire preaches to his team, that win was to be celebrated for 24 hours because it's time for the team to get to work on the Kansas State Wildcats, who are also coming off their biggest win of the season. Kansas State marched into Norman, ran the ball up and down the field, and shocked the number 6 Oklahoma Sooners 41-34. David, look away. Quarterback Adrian Martinez ran for 148 yards and 4 touchdowns in probably his best game of his college career, which seems to have started back in the early 90s. The Wildcats season has been somewhat of an enigma so far because it was just 2 weeks ago that they lost to Tulane at home. But Coach Joey McGuire and company know that loss is not indicative of what this team is now.
Excited to go to K-State. It's my favorite place to play on the road. They've got great fans. I mean, it's a true college atmosphere. You're going into a true college town in Manhattan. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Chris Kleiman is a stud. You know, exciting game. It's going to be a great game. Again, gives us an opportunity to continue what we're doing, trying to do in the Big 12, and excited to play K-State.
So we'll now toss it over to Red Raider Nation's Mason Horodisky, who is in Manhattan, Kansas, as this will be the 4th straight game Texas Tech will face a ranked opponent.
Hey guys, welcome to Fort Snyder, where it's deja vu all over again for the Texas Tech football team. For the 4th time in a row, they'll be taking on a ranked opponent in number 25 Kansas State. And for the 2nd game in a row, they'll look to break a losing streak that dates all the way back to 2008. The goal going into this one is, now that they've tasted success, what can they do with it?
One of the hardest things for people, you know, I was Googling all these, and I have a ton of them, of all these sports quotes, and guess what? None of them are about success. They're all about failure. Like every guy that's ever said anything, from Michael Jordan to, you know, Kobe Bryant, all of them, it's all about failure and how you come back from failure. It's not how you handle success. What do we want to be remembered as this team of 2022? And it's not, you know, for beating Texas. It's more than that.
Coming up later on, we'll look at yet another parallel in this game, as one of the best running backs in the entire conference will be on the field today.
And we'll check in with Mason again later, but now we better call on Collier. You still like that intro? They did a really good job with that.
It's all right. We'll keep it because it's amazing editing. How about that?
Good call. Well, winning in Manhattan has been so difficult for Texas Tech because blank, and I have a feeling it's because of a certain boogeyman.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, he likes to wear a windbreaker from time to time, or all the time, right? The guy's name is actually on the stadium. Of course, we're talking about Bill Snyder. Mason mentioned it a moment ago. It's been since 2008 since Tech won in Manhattan, and that wasn't even against Snyder. That was during the failed Ron Prince era. Red Raiders' only other win in their 9 previous all-time trips to Little Apple did come against Snyder in 2004. So technically, I guess, Stan, Chris Kleiman has the best winning percentage against the Red Raiders. there in Manhattan. He's 1-0, so he's like the Bill Snyder 2.0, though.
Maybe.
So it seems like might be a difficult task today to get a win against a Wildcats team, like you mentioned a moment ago, coming off of a huge win. But maybe it's a letdown for him.
Who knows? And maybe Bill Snyder's the unassuming boogeyman, because if you look at him, he's probably the nicest guy in the world.
Exactly.
Did you know he used to be a former swim coach?
I did not know that.
Austin College in Sherman, Texas.
Did you know that he bought the same pair of shoes and had like 20 different, probably 20,000?
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that.
As an old man, I can vouch you do that from time to time.
Get there someday. Time to take a break on Countdown to Kickoff. But when we come back, we sit down with John Kurtz, who covers K-State for the Kansas City Sports Network. He tells us how things are going for KSU so far. And then later, Mason will tell us more from Manhattan, Kansas, and we'll talk about the do-it-all back Deuce Vaughn.